18JX here with the U Leadership Series, helping emerging leaders become fantastic, awesome, and great leaders. I'm here with one of not only Mcgrath's best business owners, but one of Australia's best business owners in the real estate space, Matty King, mate. How you going?
Very good, Jet. Very good. I'm not sure I deserve those accolades, mate, but I love your work anyway.
Mate, I think anyone still standing in this industry as long as you've been, mate, is a legend. And you just keep looking like you're growing and growing and growing. Quick background for those who don't know you, mate. How long you been in the industry? What's the office situation at the moment? Where are you at?
Started as a 32-year-old, 33-year-old, which is kind of probably one of the more unusual things, Jet. Had a few different incarnations prior to that, but I started at Mcgrath at Edgecliff 22 years ago. I actually settled my last business on September 12, 2001, which was a very auspicious, horrible day in history, and pretty much started working kind of like for free up until I got a job at Mcgrath in January. So I sort of from September all the way through to I was doing work experience and helping people and doing all that kind of stuff to find my way into real estate.
And what's the office situation now? What are you running?
Look, I mean, office situation is 6. It's not like sometimes I actually think our 6th office was a bit of an ego play. Most of the time, though, what we have done is we've actually blown out an office. We haven't had any more desk space and we've needed to open a new one. So most of that's been really well organised. I think maybe the 6th office we've got to make work. But yeah, we're up to 6 offices.
And you're in the St. George area in Sydney, New South Wales? Yeah.
Correct. Yep. So anywhere around Botany Bay. Yep. And we've got an office out at Revesby as well, which is the southwest of Sydney.
Because, mate, when I was living in the Shire, I think you just had the office on the main road there.
That would have been right. That would have been absolutely right, Jet. We started with one at South Hurstville.
South Hurstville, yes.
Yeah, so that's kind of one of those areas that I think finds its way around Australia where there was a bit of a sort of designated area for a suburb that doesn't have a lot going for it except for the fact that you can cover a wide geographic area. So, yep, that's where we started in South Hurstville.
It's a very, very nice area, definitely near Oatley there. I lived at Oatley for a while. So how many in the team, mate? And are you still on the tools? What's your role in the organisation now?
Yep. So I definitely like to stay on the tools, but I guess I would write about 500,000 in GCI, and the reason for that, Jed, is that I just feel like it gives me more credibility with the team, keeps me sort of current. If you're able to go and list properties well and have great options, then obviously it gives you a little bit more leverage with the team. So. Yeah, I would do that. Kieran, my business partner, he's a $2 to $3 million writer, and his focus is predominantly on writing the big numbers and doing the sales. But he manages the finances of the business as well. Not that I can't do that, but that's something that he loves and he's good at. And we've got about 75, 80 people in the team across the board. So about 35 of those are in the sales area. The rest are in property management or other supports.
And what, as a leader, obviously a business owner and a leader, what's your key role from a leadership perspective?
I think unblocking the unnecessary petties. I think keeping people on track.
Yep.
I think leadership is kind of one of those things that. Is just a lot of gardening and a lot of the time, and it's not great, and it's not sort of, the great leaders that we think of like Nelson Mandela. It's more around how do we eradicate things that distract people from doing their best work, whether they're internal or external, and creating a vision. I guess that's the second part of it, and for them, most importantly, because I think most people lack a vision with themselves. I know I certainly did, and for the business as a whole. So that would be my kind of key roles.
Love it, man. Love it. Last 22 or so years, what have you learnt about leadership?
Well, I've learned a lot what not to do.
Let's start there. That would be helpful. A couple of key things.
So one of my famous clangers, Jet, was as a leader, was during the GFC. We're about 2 years in. And I had been used to real estate being an FPOS machine, and just everything was kind of travelling smoothly. And then as you would remember, the world turned on its head, and for 3 months, it was costing Kieran and myself about $20,000 each for the privilege to go to work.
Yeah.
At the same time, I was also building a new house in Blakehurst and didn't have a lot of resources behind me. And so I hit the panic button and did what leaders shouldn't do, and sat in front of the sales team and said, look, if we don't get a listing very soon, then my house is going to be we're going to have a new listing and it's going to be my house, which actually took it took the energy completely and utterly out of the room. And it was one of my worst leadership decisions, because obviously there was a lot of people in a lot of pain and they weren't looking to hear about the leader of the business's pain. So what it did actually do as a byproduct, which was quite coincidental and not through my doing, Kieran, my business partner, went home, had enough, said that was shit, why would you do that for? And went home and changed his life. And that was the first year that he ever wrote $1.3 million that year, which was great. And at that time we were sharing the sales, so we were doing all of our sales together, and we both exponentially grew our sales business. But I remembered that, Jet, when the COVID hit, and of course a similar scenario, we were all like, well, how the hell is this? Now, obviously I had the advantage of two things. I'd been through that experience of the GFC and saw how not to be a leader. And secondarily, I was obviously in a better financial position, but I think it had more to do with the fact that I'd learnt those lessons and I was like, right, I'm ready to step up. And I think for the first 6 weeks, what I learned from COVID was the first 6 weeks, I had pretty much 75 or 80 people in the business saying to me, like, we are so glad that you're our leader. And then I actually fell off a cliff. Like it just became all too much, because I was just so high energy for that 6 weeks. And I found another lesson in leadership, which was, great, but you've got to maintain balance in your own life and stop lifting everybody up. And so I sort of flattened myself that way. But at least from a leadership viewpoint, I felt like I did a much better job.
And the key lesson over the last 20 or so years through all of that you take out and apply today that you've learned is what? What's the big one?
To always be real, but the chaos is the opportunity, and to keep people focused on the positive aspect of things. So I'm not one of those, sort of 100% positive, everything's going to be okay and just keep powering on, because that's, to me, that doesn't resonate with me when I'm being led. But it is certainly to spot the opportunity in that chaos and keep people focused on the opportunity all of the time. And I think that gets people excited. And then, mate, it's just a constant sort of weeding the garden, and we've got to weed our own garden, we've got to weed others' gardens, and then we've got to look at it as an organisation. So, that's kind of the best lesson I can share.
What if you could put it into a style, what's your style of leadership?
I often see great leaders get asked this question and they give really good answers. I think I just like to be
disappoint me, mate.
Yeah, I'm gonna, because I'm shit. I think, what am I? I'm a transparent leader. I think some people sometimes say, King, you're too honest. Like, don't be quite that honest, but that's just who I am. I can't change that. I think that I am an empathetic leader. I think that I really, at a deep level, I certainly haven't studied psychology, but I'm always interested in the way humans think and operate and behave and why they do certain things. And so I've made a study of that. And what gets the best out of people, Jed? I think we all know this, but we just got to be conscious of the fact that, like, I had one of my top sales agents that when he met me, he said to me, mate, you just make me feel like shit, like every single time. And this was early on, and this was another great lesson for me. And I just realised that most people don't have a cheerleader. They're their own harshest critics, and they need cheerleaders, is what I'm trying to say. And so, whilst you can get the ratio, maybe 4 or 5 positive meetings, and then maybe one a little bit more real, I think that people are looking for cheerleaders, and so he told me that. But then also understanding that I've got one other of my top agents that likes me to just come in and really sort of peel back the onion and get real and be quite direct, and he responds to that. So I think that, as you would know, expert at it, getting the best out of people is a matter of understanding people. And so I think I understand people quite well, and I think I'm always interested and curious and wanting to get better in that area.
What have you, on the flip side, over the years, looking at leaders, and I'm sure you've come across a lot of leaders. What are leaders doing badly? What have you seen?
Well, one of the things that I've learned from a leader that I really actually admire, who's so good in a lot of areas, is their inability to let go. And I've really learnt that because A, I'm not very good at a lot of things, and B, and being able to let go of your ego and realising that you're not good at a lot of things, I reckon is super empowering, and business just goes to the moon, in my opinion. So one of the things that I've seen, Jet, is the inability to let stuff go. And so now I've empowered a lot of people in my business. And so at a sales meeting, for an example, we have our monthly meeting. Every single person who heads a department gets up and speaks. I've made sure that I work on it with them so it's punchy and that it's relevant and that there's a lot of humour in the meeting. And I think that by me letting go and letting other people do stuff that do it way better than me, our business again is exponentially growing. So I think a lot of leaders, not a lot, I think that there's a portion of leaders that feel like they are the be all and the end all, and that because they've been in the business longer than everyone else, that they're the wisest person. And in a lot of areas they are, but in a lot of areas they also aren't. And it's the ability to be able to recognise that and say, hey, the betterment of all of us, we need to move forward. Yeah. I want you to run this. You own this, and you do this, and let them fail. And the other thing, that would be the other thing. Let people fail, because it's okay as long as they learn from it and move forward. And I'm always about let's get the race car flying around the track so that occasionally it goes off the track, but it's okay. We're going to get there way quicker than just sort of driving around like a nana.
Yeah, no, you're spot on, mate, because in my 12 years in the industry, that's probably one of the most common issues with leaders, that inability to let go, trust, believe in others, and let them have a crack and see what happens. What was it something that happened that brought you to that space? I mean, 22 years, was there a moment where you thought, oh, geez, this is not working for me, and I've got to sort of maybe delegate a bit more and trust others? Was there a moment that you can remember? And how
I reckon, Jet, what we've done is we've had exponential growth. We've like really gone, and then it was probably at a point of plateau, and we've had a few of those points, and we're at a bit of one of those kind of points now, where you go from we went from 4 to 8 million really fast, way back in the day, and then we went from 8 to 12 really fast, and then we sort of went up again, and then obviously everyone had that sort of massive year, whenever it was 18 months ago or whatever, and we were up over 20 million, and it was like it's times where we've actually plateaued, and I've gone, right, who's the problem here? And it's generally, it's not all me, but it's generally me, or the structure of the way we've got the business sort of organised. So it's like, right, I need to have a rethink. And that's why I've been a massive advocate, Jet, for engaging people like yourself as coaches, mentors, and also peers. I've got a fabulous peer group. Big shout out to Philly Harris, who's one of my favourite human beings in real estate. He's the best systems guy that I know. So if it's a systems issue, he'd be one of the 5 people that I would talk to. Con Statharopoulos is doing really good work in our Parramatta office at the moment. He's quite famous around real estate right now. He's another guy that I regularly go to. I think Place Real Estate in Brisbane are doing an amazing job. So I think, and that's just, forgive me for all of the great people that helped me that I haven't mentioned, but I reckon every time I've plateaued, Jet, to answer your question, I've always figured out who can do it really well, and then bring it back to the business and go, right, you go figure this out, and then let go and just let them do it.
Yeah, nice, mate. I like that. Digging a bit deeper, mate, what's after the career you have and are having at this moment, what's your Achilles, if anything, as a leader? What are you trying to make the gap smaller in as far as your own leadership? What are you working on?
Keeping the pace of technological change is my Achilles heel. There's no doubt about that. And that goes to what I just said before. I'm empowering younger people in my office, but I've got to have a deeper understanding as to how it all works. We've just implemented a new system that's going to allow for all of our front office managers, our receptionists at our 6 offices, share work on a system that'll share the workload. And I bothered to sit down and have a look at it, because ordinarily I'm just like, as long as that's taken care of, I'm okay, because I have my own PA. Yeah. So that would be one Achilles heel. My other Achilles heel, which I'm working on right now with a guy that I mentioned to you before, is my health. I think, I do want to, like we all do, and I can tell, mate, you're leaving an excellent legacy for our industry in terms of particularly the personal health. I think when you get to our age, Jet, you want to leave a legacy. So part of that for me was my health. So obviously, I've always had high energy for a fat bloke, and always sort of being able to. I've always been physical. I was a sportsman when I was a kid. Went to the Institute of Sport. What a waste of money that was.
You're a good fit for a rugby forward, mate. Come on.
Exactly. That's about. I didn't used to be when I was at the AIS. I wasn't in rugby, but the point being is that my long-term goal is to obviously leave a legacy like some of the magic peers and mentors that I have, particularly my mentors. So my other Achilles heel was my health. That was the thing, and I'm right smack bang in them. I'm 6 or 7 weeks into making changes like I've never made before in my life, and I'm loving it. So that's been the other. That were the two things.
That's mate. That's great to hear. That's great, and more leaders should do that and set that example, mate. That's your Achilles. What's your superpower as a leader?
I think I'm able to take my ego out of situations and just look at how do we do this better. And as I said to you before, I think it's I can dial up empathy and understand people. Sometimes some leaders in my business, some leaders external, they get frustrated where I don't. People have said to me, "Why the hell? How do you do that? How do you put up with that? Why doesn't that just send you around the twist?" And it's because I probably remove the person and go back to the core root of the problem. And so that would be a superpower, I think, that I'm able to get. I hope that I'm able to get the best out of people by doing that.
Yeah, I love that. But you would have been involved in a lot of recruitment over the years. You've got a lot of people on deck there at the moment. What's the key characteristics of leadership are you trying to instill into them within their roles? And what do you look for when you're recruiting, even as far as leadership characteristics?
Great question. Really good question. Firstly, Jet, leadership, and I drive the team mad with this kind of stuff, and they freak out now when they see me walking through the car park and picking up rubbish. Leadership is everybody in the business, and my expectation of the most junior person in the business is that they should be there to lead me at times, and vice versa. And leadership comes in the most mundane and situations where nobody's looking, and you just see a piece of rubbish in the car park and you pick it up. Why? Because that reflects on what's going on the inside. So what was your question? I've lost track of the question.
Leaders, when you're recruiting leaders.
Yes, sorry.
For that characteristics, what do you instill into them when they come into the organisation, and what are you actually looking for when you're bringing them into the organisation?
Gotcha. So yes, it's an empowerment. It's an explaining that leadership is in everything that we do. Mate, one of the basic things, and it's an old sort of Craig Bellamy, a Melbourne Storm coach thing. I'm very, very curious to watch people, if I meet them in a cafe, how they treat the staff. Whether they're engaged. One of my personal dislikes in humans is the people that just want to be friendly to people of value, that are value to them and not to everybody. So that's, to me, that's leadership, and I always talk about that as leadership is just my kids know that they've got to be able to tell me what the waiter's eye colour is and what their name is by the end of the exercise. By the end of the exercise, by the end of the time we've been together with them. So I'm looking for that. I think Barbara Corcoran, she was speaking at ARIC, but I don't know if you remember, but one of the things that she said to me in terms of recruiting was that, she always said, I think to be a successful salesperson, there's two things. One is empathy, and I can tell that you're a really empathetic person. The second one I haven't quite seen in you is the ability to compete, being a competitive person. And she say that she would watch their reaction to that, and if they were really competitive, she would be able to tell. And if they were like, "Oh, sorry about that," then she would just kind of let them go. So I think that is an important thing. And I think salespeople are the worst people in the world. A lot of the guys that recruit into their own businesses in my team, they told me that they wanted to be the number one agent in the country. And it's just like, please, like, did we actually dive into motivational fit? Did we find out why?
Yeah.
Like, just stop being sold to. So I think in terms of recruiting leaders, it's not just a matter of recruiting what they say, it's recruiting what they do and how their behaviours are going to be and why they want to do it. You know, the motivation is very important.
You've mentioned a couple of people, mentors and people that inspire you before, but over the 20 years, who's been your sort of go-to leader that you've looked up to, that you've gotten the most from? Who's been that person or people now or previously?
You know what, Jet? I don't reckon there's been one. Obviously, John Mcgrath's been the most influential person in my career.
Yeah.
And my, you know, alongside, I suppose, of my business partner, Kieran Bresnahan. But I think the evolution, Jet, is that we've got to be looking for different people for different things. So I still look to John, but I'm looking at other leaders for other things. And I don't think pinning that one person for that 20 years is actually healthy or good. So for me, it's a matter of, you know, working with different people along the way, getting the juice out of them, and then moving on to the next. And I think even as a leader, like, there's going to be a point at which you are no longer as relevant, and you need to then find other people to step in and lead those people. So, for an example, you know, we've got a young guy who's 28 who's written close to 2 million, and he would like to break 3 million. And I've never done 3 million personally in GCI, and Kieran, being in the business, is a little bit local. So then it becomes a matter of connecting him up. Who else do I know that writes 3 million or 4 million or 5 million? And how do I get them in front of them for an hour or two? And perhaps they'll start a relationship. Perhaps they'll just get one piece of gold. Yep. So yeah, that's there's not one person that has stood out. My father-in-law, who passed away, sitting next to me tragically at the World Cup soccer. You know, he was the guy that he was a rugby coach, and he was an amazing man manager like I've never seen before. And I now realise, because I'm his age now, that he was just interested in the same things that I was interested in. But he is on my board of directors. I've got an internal board of directors, some I know, some I don't know, that I go, well, how would they handle that? One of them's obviously John being so influential, and one of them's my father-in-law. So yeah, they and he's been dead since 2007, but I still refer back to what would he do in this kind of situation. But there's not one person.
Yeah, well, can I go back to the health and your mission, I guess you call it now, to get healthy? I mean, having done a lot of research in wellness and well-being in the industry, it's a common thing, particularly for business owners.
Mm-hmm.
What a couple of questions. Why do you think business owners leave it too long? Yep. To do something about it.
Yep.
And then how can we avoid that? How can we get them to do it sooner? Because I'd assume you wish you had done it sooner. And you know, what is it about business owners that just don't get it, in the sense of, if I'm healthy and fit and got this area ticked, I'm actually going to be more productive, more influential. So maybe your experience can sort of steer us to an answer, but I'm always perplexed by that, Matt.
Well, I think it's a great question, Jet. We've got to ask that all of ourselves. And I actually am not sorry that I didn't do it earlier, because this might be a strange answer to your question. I think the light goes on for different people at different times. And part of the reason for me making this change is not just because I'm 54, but it was because it meant to me, like, for any change to happen, we all know that we've got to be disturbed about our current reality. And as I said, although I've been overweight since I was 25, and prior to that I was sort of fit and mobile, I have always had good energy, and I haven't felt like it got in my way. Now, so I don't judge anybody that's carrying an extra 5,000 pancakes around their stomach, and, you know, they've got the additional energy to be able to go and, you know, live for 6 months without eating. But I will say this to you. I did draw a line in the sand, Jet, and I thought to myself, right, and it sounds, well, it was very profound for me, and we've all heard it, was I either make the decision to make this change now, or, because I've had a great life, I've got a great family, you know, my marriage is in great shape at the moment. It hasn't always been. Sometimes it struggled with the work, but I've been married for nearly 30 years. I love my wife. I love my kids. Like, I live in a much better house. I've got much more money than I ever thought. Got lots of great friends. Like, my life's okay. I could die and I'd be okay with it. But the one thing for me, Jet, was that I've got this regret that I didn't actually push it to my full sort of limits. And I didn't. And while a lot of people pat me on the back and blokes I went to school with and say, you're so successful, look at you, I actually, internally, I don't. And so that's what the switch for me was that I've got this one chance and also partly to inspire other people, but to be able to say, shit, like he was overweight for a long time and at 54, he was able to make the change. But really, I've actually discovered more in the last 6 or 7 weeks, Jet, that there's only one person, and we know it. It's a cliche, but I really get it now. Like, my personal integrity is so much more important to me than it's ever been. And so that has been the light that has like switched on for me. And then I realised that, and I don't want to be too evangelical about this, but I'm a really good person and I do a really lot of good things for a lot of people. But there was about 0.5% of my life where my words didn't match my actions. I could tell a fib here or there, nothing major, because I used to think that because I'm such a great person and I do all these amazing things for all of these people and I'm involved in charities, it's okay. But it's actually the only person that misses out is you. And so what I have discovered on this journey is that I feel so much better now because everything I say I do, I do. And I would love for me to be able to live however long I've got, whether it's 10, 20, 30 years left. I would love to be able to live my life that way so that when I take my last breath, I can actually go, you did it. Whether you did it at 54 or whether I would have liked to have done it at 44, but I actually did it and I can take my last breath and rejoice in the person that I became.
Yeah, love it. Well, it's that whole audio matches your video. And,
yes, exactly, 100%. And mate, like I said, 90% of the time, 99% of the time it does, but there's this time where it doesn't, and I used to accept it, and it eats away at you, and I've realised how much it eats away at you. So
the integrity, it's your personal authenticity, mate. So I love it, mate. Well done. Couple of questions, mate, and we'll wrap this up. Message to young emerging leaders out there, what would you say to them?
Be curious, be vulnerable, and get some great mentors, get multiple mentors, be a great mentor, invest in coaching. How you expect to coach somebody if you haven't got coach or coaches, and have them for different parts of your life, I think is essential. So that would be what I would be saying. Just stop believing the brochure about leadership and actually understand what leadership is. And it's being led, it's leading, it's being curious, it's being vulnerable, it's being human.
Last question, mate. Sum up leadership in one word.
Leadership in one word. So these are those questions where I look for that. Some people give great answers. What is it? Just leadership in one word. I keep thinking like leadership is love. That's what leadership is. If you don't actually love what you do, and you can fall out of love, like it's like a marriage. You can be absolutely in love and then fall back in love again. So I've fallen out of love with real estate, like we all have, right? I'm sure you fall out of love with coaching occasionally, but you can find your way to fall back in love. So I reckon if it all starts with love, and maybe that's too waffy. Maybe half the people just switched off, but actually that's leadership to me.
Yeah, love it, mate. Matt King, thanks for your wisdom, mate. 20 years plus of experience and the ups and downs of what it means to be a leader. Really appreciate your time, mate. If you're watching this and you want more information about leadership and what we do at Jet Xavier, send us an email, jet@jetxavier.com. I'll get back to you straight away. Thanks, Matty. Have a great
Thanks, buddy. Take care, Jet.
Appreciate it.